Today's episode of the WAC Podcast is brought to you by Hercules Tires, the official tire of the Western Athletic Conference. Now here are your hosts, Eric Danner and Rachel V. Hill.
Welcome back to the WAC Podcast. Eric Danner and Rachel V. Hill. We are now joined by Jonah Goldberg, the Senior Associate AD for Communications at UTRGV. Jonah, thank you for joining us. Not exactly the time we wanted to talk to you, but we sure do appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Rachel. Really glad to be able to talk about this wonderful man, Lew Hill.
First off, Jonah, I mean, it's still a shock. We're recording this on Tuesday. Kind of walk us through last week. Obviously, we had him on the show. We had him on the road to WAC Vegas last week, was getting ready for GCU. And then after we recorded that, GCU had a positive COVID test. And then game against Texas Southern was scheduled on Saturday night. A game went right down to the wire. And I mean, it's such shocking news. Kind of tell us from your perspective how things happened last week.
You know, the last time I spoke to him was when you recorded with him on Tuesday. Monday, he had his weekly press conference with the media, and he was normal. He was joking around with our student reporter who made a comment about how Asbjorn Midtgaard was going to be WAC Player of the Year, and then Coach Hill jumped on him and said, "We don't give out awards here. We don't give out awards here. Why can't it be Javon Levi? Why can't it be Sean Ray?" And it was just such a fun back and forth and Coach Hill, you know, when he was done, he just said, "Hey, you know, this is I'm just messing with you." And it was fun. Like, we were all laughing, and it was just such a normal Coach Hill interaction where he gave his normal answers, but then he found an opportunity to laugh and make some jokes and, you know, really just have a good time. And then, you know, Tuesday, he interviews with y'all for the road to WAC Vegas, and gave what I deemed to be a normal interview. And then he led practice on Wednesday and Thursday, and, you know, schedules started changing, and so they practiced Friday, got on a bus to Houston to get to Texas Southern. Played Saturday. Coach Hill got a technical foul in the first half. So, you know, par for the course, right? He's a very passionate individual on the sidelines. And on Sunday after the game, he was still texting with people. Like, men's soccer knocked off 15th ranked CLU. And I know he texted Coach Hancock to congratulate him. It was his first match as our head coach. And he got home, he went to sleep, and that was that. I found out about 3:30 on Sunday, give or take. And when Chase called me to tell me the news, I fell to the ground. And I just started breathing really hard. And it's one of those moments where you have no idea what just happened in the world or what you're supposed to do next. And I remember Chase on the other line just saying, "Sorry. I'm so sorry." And he apologized for putting the burden on me to have to start coordinating things. And I just told him, "Hey, man, it's my job." So I took a minute, and my wife was watching, I don't know, Toy Story or something like that with my daughter, and I waved her in to the bedroom and told her what happened, and she broke down. And then I went and grabbed my laptop and got to work writing the hardest press release of my life, trying to figure out how I could talk about this, my friend of the last 5 years, and spent probably about an hour trying to do it. And then we just, started bringing other people into the loop. Once, Chase had, when he called me, he was on his way to see Coach's family. And then I got the word that we could start bringing some people into the loop, because I was going to need support, the graphic, and had to let folks at the WAC office know. And there's a lot of people that need to be told before it becomes public. And it became public, it leaked out, which, it was unfortunate that it happened as quickly before we were able to tell everybody that we wanted to be able to tell before it became public knowledge, through a personal phone call. But what was a heartbreaking day also in a way became a special day, and a special 2 days, because what is social media? It is a place that is often full of hate and vitriol. And I spent so many hours since I got the news staring at my Twitter feed and seeing nothing but love and support and wonderful memories of Coach Hill, and people just the outpouring was incredible. And to see how many people loved him and his family, it was truly something special. And then Monday, it's the thing about life is the sun's going to come up the next day. You don't get to say, well, I don't want to do anything today. I didn't want to. Getting out of bed was a challenge, but I owed it to Coach Hill and his family and the student athletes and to everybody who was showing all of that support to be there and to honor him in the best way we could. And together we started coming up with what plans we could. We had a volleyball match Monday night. Women's golf was at Texas State. One of our administrators is with the women's golf team. And, women's golf, they jumped on it. They were wearing orange ribbons, Coach Hill's honor. Volleyball team wore black ribbons, said Hill, and they put them on their sneakers, and the whole staff was wearing them, continue to wear them. And we got a moment of silence organized. And then during the broadcast, such a hard broadcast. I remember my broadcast partner, Brian, made a comment about, I don't even know which team he was talking about. I can't remember, but he said, attack with discipline. And that's what this team does. And yeah, that was Coach Hill's mantra, AWD, attack with discipline. And then at the first coach's timeout, non-media timeout, so we weren't going to commercial, we put the graphic up on the broadcast and I just started talking. I didn't know what I was going to say when we hit that stoppage, but I knew I was going to talk about my friend. And we had the opportunity to let everybody know what kind of person Coach Hill was and what made him special. And, that's something that we want to make sure that we keep telling people for as long as we can, because as long as we remember him, he'll always be around.
Jonah, that was beautiful. You got me in tears. But obviously we want to pass on our condolences to Coach Hill's family, to the entire UTRGV family as well. And you did a beautiful job last night on the volleyball broadcast of talking about Coach Hill. I would like to say that you did an excellent job. But, another person or another team that was affected was obviously his team. How did the student athletes find out?
So after After Chase met with the family, he then returned to campus. He met with the team late afternoon, early evening area. Met with them right around the dorms. Not a dry eye in the house, I'm sure. And he was a consistent father figure for these young men, and he was the kind of guy that they looked up to, that they wanted to be around, they wanted to win for. They didn't want to let him down, and they all cared about each other so much. They really were a family. And I know they've gotten together, and I know they're going to try and continue to keep the team together, and because they need to lean on each other right now during this kind of time. And our hearts are certainly with them too, because this is unimaginable for them to be going through right now.
Talking with Jonah Goldberg, Senior Associate AD for Communications at UTRGV. And Jonah, talking about the team, obviously such a shock for them, for everybody. They have the issue of going on with the season now. I don't know if any decisions have been made about this week, next week, anything like that. Obviously, things are pretty fluid. This is very raw for everyone, but any insight on what the future of the team for the remaining month and a half of the season is going to look like?
As of the moment at which we are recording this podcast, I can tell you that no decisions have been made.
Has any updates been made about possible coaches? I know there had been talks that Coach Lew Hill wouldn't be continuing coaching this season. Any idea there?
So that was all extremely recent. From what I understand, he told the team after Saturday's game, and on the bus ride back to the Rio Grande Valley after the game is when he informed the administration, and he called Chase and let him know that he was going to step aside, and he wanted to meet on Sunday to discuss it. So this was all very new. And obviously that meeting didn't happen. So, right now we're focused on the family. We're worried about Coach Hill's family. We're worried about those players. We're worried about his staff. We're worried about everybody who knew him. And that's obviously there are a lot of decisions that need to be made surrounding the team. Who will be that interim coach? Who will, what will the future look like in terms of competitions? And those decisions will be made soon, because they have to be. We're just taking it 1 hour at a time.
Jonah, you talked a little bit about the team, and also about all the outpouring of support that you saw on Twitter, and some big names, Trey Young, and of course Buddy Hield, who Coach Hill coached at Oklahoma, and you also saw like Jay Billis, some people like that. I mean, it's unfortunate, I guess, that Coach Hill didn't get to know that there was this outpouring of support, but maybe he did know that all these people held him in such high regard.
Yeah, it's some of those quotes, stop me in my tracks. You have Lon Kruger coming out and immediately talking about Lew's family, and how much that hurts for him. Chris Jans at New Mexico State, and it's beautiful the way he talked about Lew, and how much he hurts for the team and the family. And I've tried to read everything and listen to everything that's been out there. Like our local media, a couple of them cried on the air, and it was just as I had stopped crying. I watched that and right back to it. And it tells you just how much he meant to people, that you have that you have journalists crying on television to report such news. And you have former players, former staff members, And, you know, some of the tributes were simple. Texas A&M tweeted out a graphic that just said Lew Hill, and they just wrote here. And a number of Aggie fans have responded here. You've had, I think every team in the WAC put out a tribute, which meant so much. It meant so much to us. It was one of the things I was thinking about when I was trying to figure out how do we honor him. I was thinking, well, maybe I should reach out to the other WAC schools, see if they'll do something. I didn't have to. They did it on their own. And that meant so much. And just hearing what all the coaches had to say and what all the departments had to say. I had a lot of people reach out to me directly, see if I was okay, with other communications people, other broadcasters, coaches. You know, a lot of people reached out, and you know, some people who I hadn't seen in a long time. You know, like Sed Bonner and Joe and Vancini from, you know, I hadn't seen them since WAC Vegas last year. And I heard from them, and, you know, it meant a lot that, you know, that people were, you know, were thinking about all of us. And, you know, it's such a tough thing to be going through. But to see how much people cared about him, it's heartwarming. And it makes me realize that, you know, a lot of people are going to remember Coach Hill for a very long time.
You obviously knew him extremely, extremely well. What's something that maybe most everyday people that came in contact with him like may not know about him that you do?
So technology wasn't exactly Coach Hill's friend. If you need to reach him, you emailed him. That was no point in that. He didn't check his emails generally. He didn't really use his online calendar, so sending the calendar invite wasn't always the best way to reach him. He had a written calendar on his desk, and that's how he updated things. If I called him and said, "Hey, can you do an interview tomorrow at 1 o'clock?" and he said, "I think so, but man, I'm in the car right now, or I'm at home right now, and I don't have my calendar. It's back at the office." You know, me, I pull out my phone. I say, "Oh, here's my calendar." No, not him. He had everything written down, handwritten. So, you know, every week when we would have our Zoom press conference, I found myself resending him the link because we had to get him logged in, and you know, he wasn't going to see the calendar invite and things like that. And yeah. I think my favorite Lew Hill story though was at WAC Media Day. And this would have been, I think, 2018. It was at a hotel in Denver, and the UTRGV was scheduled to go first. So I went down about an hour before the festivities were going to begin. And I went to the hotel restaurant. I was just sitting there eating breakfast. And a few minutes later, Coach Hill comes down, and he goes over to the area where WAC Media Day is going to be. And he sees people setting up, and nobody's ready for anything. And he's getting really agitated. And then he sees me at the restaurant. So he walks in and he sits down. He says, "They're just getting set up?" I'm like, yeah, they're just getting set up. And then the waitress comes over and says, "Can I get you anything?" And he looks at me. He's like, "Do we have time for that?" I'm like, yeah, get whatever you want. And I'm just sitting there eating very calmly, you know, sipping some tea, and he's about to lose it. And then I think it dawned on him what had happened, because he keeps looking at his phone. He's looking at the clock. And then he finally says to me, "What time is it?" His phone hadn't changed time zones. He was still on Central Time. He didn't realize, he didn't know his phone hadn't changed. I mean, why would he? Like, if you don't, you know, it's supposed to automatically change when you turn it back on when you get off the plane. So he didn't realize that we were still an hour away from anything happening. So when I told him, just started laughing, and then he calmed down and he got some breakfast and he sat there. And I remember he stepped away for a second. He called his wife and he's like, and he told her what happened. And I just started making fun of him after that. I was, Coach, come on. And he was like, man, I could have slept longer. So that was one of my favorite stories about him, because he was so upset. And then to find out, oh, it's just not time yet. It's like, okay. And then he was good. He's like, oh, my mistake. And he had a great press conference. He laughed and smiled. And then we, headed back to the airport, flew back. And I remember on our layover in Houston, we sat down and we were watching, I think there were sports, some kind of sporting event was on, and we were sitting in one of the restaurants, and he said, hey, what can I get for you? And I'm like, well, gosh, if you're getting me, then all I want is a giant Oreo milkshake. And he said, all right, let's do it. And I mean, he was amazing. And, he, as passionate as he was on the court, he was just such a fun guy to be around off the court. He was so friendly and so easy to work with that if I didn't call him directly, if I need something, like if I had gone through one of his assistants or an operations person or something, he'd get insulted. He'd be like, why don't you just call me? Like, he was easy. It was great. And he didn't need 100 layers between him and anybody else. He was great to work with, great to be around. And he was my friend.
Jonah, we certainly want to thank you for taking some time out in this very trying time. And I know you got a volleyball match to get ready for in a couple hours here. So as you mentioned earlier, I mean, all these things are still happening, and this is so raw. And what a great tribute you gave to him, as Rachel mentioned last night and today here on the podcast. We really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Peace and love.
That is Jonah Goldberg. We'll be right back, and we'll talk some WAC basketball. Thank you for listening to the WAC Podcast.
Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And check out our website at wacsports.com.